Thank you for joining us at the 9 Days Q&A, and we're going to be talking about, the movie and this final scene. I'm Winston Duke. I play Will in the movie, and we have Edson Oda, who is the incredible director of the piece, and we have Spike Jonze, our executive producer.
This scene is the last scene of the film. It's the climax, and it's one of my favorite scenes. And so if you haven't seen the movie, I recommend stopping watching this, watch the film, then watch this again, because you're going to want to watch that scene twice anyway. And for those of you that already watched the movie, here's the scene again, and then we'll be right back.
Have you ever reckoned the earth much? Spend this day and night with me, and you shall possess the origin of all poems. I celebrate myself and sing myself. And what I assume, you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me is good, belongs to you. I loaf and invite my soul. I lean and I loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. Ah, my tongue. Ow. Every atom of my blood born here. From parents born here. And their parents the same. As their parents the same. I now 37 years old and in perfect health begin, hoping to cease not till death. The smoke of my breath echoes, ripples, buzzed whispers, love root, silk thread, crotch, and vine. My inspiration and respiration, the passing of air and blood through my lungs, the sound of the belched words of my voice. Whoa! Loose to the eddies of the wind. A few light kisses. Mwah. Mwah. A few embraces. The reaching around of arms. Oh, the play of the light and shade on the trees as the supple boughs wag. The delight alone. Or the rush of the streets. Or along the fields and hillsides. The feeling of health. The full noon trill. The song of me rising from bed and greeting the sun. Hey, son! Son! Da, 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 son, 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 son. The last scud of sun holds back for me. It flings my likeness after the rest. And as true as any on the shadowed wilds, it coaxes me to the vapor and the dusk. I depart as air, I fused my flesh in eddies and drifted in lacy jags. And to die is different than anyone supposed. And look here, I bequeath myself to the dirt to grow from the grass I love. If you want me again, look for me under your boot soles. You will hardly know who I am or what I mean, but I shall be good health to you nevertheless. Failing to fetch me at first, keep encouraged. Missing me one place, search another. I stop someplace, waiting for you. Thank you.
I'm so glad you picked this scene. This scene is so radical. And I remember when we first talked about it after I saw the film, Edson, I asked you about where the text came from, why the text. Obviously, emotionally, it's so perfect. It's so perfect for the repression of Winston's character and the explosion of it, and for everything he's saying about how he wants to live and how he wants to be seen. And so maybe just talk about how you picked this text and how the text came about.
Yeah, it was interesting because when that's the part of the movie people say like it's the best writing of the movie, and I didn't write it. So. But,
you did get some. You did do some incredible sampling.
I picked really well. Yeah. So yeah, and then when I was writing, I knew like a moment when Winston's character become Will again, you know, and for me that should be like almost like the celebration of life, this kind of a writing that would just translate what he was going through. And then I remember I'm a huge fan of this movie, Dead Poet Society.
Yeah.
And there is this scene, there was like Ethan Hawke and Robin Williams talk about the Yelp and Yelp. And it's funny because I'm from Brazil, so I'm not so familiar with Walt Whitman, you know, but that scene, it was just like, you know, it was so inspiring that I just went to that, you know, his work and his poems, and I found this piece, this song, a song of myself. And it was so much about how it feels to be alive, you know, how it feels to be in touch with nature, how it feels to be in this body, you know. And I put in the script, but it was interesting because for me, it was like a temp writing for me. And I always had in mind that whoever would play Will, I would give, you know, the freedom to just pick something that would mean something really big for him. So, but that wasn't the way it worked in the end. But I think Winston can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. It felt like that piece itself picked us and kept picking us throughout the entire process. Because as Edson said, he gave me the freedom to choose something that I had more of a relationship with. He came to me, he said, I know you come from theater, and so feel free to bring in any monologue from any play or anything like that, because it's really about the character expressing something that's very close to him. So if it's close to you, it's close to Will. I scoured, I think, Shakespeare, Chekhov, we brought in the Seagull, August Wilson. We looked at, a lot of different plays from August Wilson, and we just kept coming back to Song of Myself. At the end of it, I just said, I think this is just the thing we got to do. And I did it one time fully for Edson, and you cried. Yeah. I remember that day. Yeah, we had a rehearsal. Rehearsing was a big part of our process. Mm-hmm. And Edson was in tears, and he said, we have to use the poem. This is it. I didn't expect that it would really be the thing, but it's the thing.
Can I ask you both, because I love the text so much. And will you both quote your not even your favorite, one of the parts that just jumps to your head right now?
So many of them. I would say, I keep sending flowers and they keep sending pigs to eat them.
He was just being kind. He just like
yeah, that wasn't from the monologue.
He's talking about not the monologue. I just give like a line from Edson's, right?
No, but actually that line, it's not from this scene, but it is a scene. It is a line that really encaptures your character and the film's fear of
being deeply in love with life and existence and interaction with human beings. I think that's the main fear. I always say that I spent the entire movie playing Will's shadow. I played the parts of Will that most of us don't want to show. It's painful, it's dark. And that monologue is his light. Most of us, it's light. It's where most of us wish to interact with each other day to day. So,
and the thing that is hard to do, it's hard to live that way, because I think it is easier to live tight or shut it down. It's easier to live cynically. It's easier to live scared, but it's also a sad way to live, because you're not actually, without the risk, you don't get that electricity of what being alive is. That line you quoted was actually Edson's line, but what's a line from the monologue and this is partially just selfishly because I love hearing your voice in the monologue.
You should say it in the voice.
My favorite one is the ending always is, you'll find me there waiting. So when I'm gone, and I'm a part of the grass and all those things, look behind you, you'll find me there waiting, which is this beautiful way of like, no one really leaves us. No one's ever really gone, because they're all a part of the cycle, which is, that for me was my favorite aspect. It always chokes me up.
Yeah, I feel that, and I feel that from that scene, and that the whole movie, it sort of undulates with that. And Edson, what's part of the monologue that jumps out at you? That
I think it's not specifically a line, but it's a moment when Winston is yelling and Sassy joins him in the yell. Winston is just, he's leading. It's almost like a dance. It is a dance.
The two of them are like alive together.
I think what Winston was doing, he was the best leaders, and like when they dance, they invite someone to make the movement or something. So it was interesting because Winston was just always be inviting and giving, like, Zazie like a space. That yell was just like, okay, I'm yelling here, and then Zazie just joins that, playful, moment. And then the composer did such a terrific job adding like a third voice in that. So for me, it was very powerful.
Like, are you sort of out of your body in that, like doing that? Are you even conscious? Are you making decisions? Are you just completely surrendered and like?
It's a lot of both. There's a lot of work that I put into working on that part of the script. For the entire time that, ever since I got the job, which is like looking it over, breaking down each line, making each line into sentences. I went back into the entirety of the poem, because it's much longer than what we have. He's talking about being completely present. So it was really figuring that out, doing all that work. I got to the desert, and I remember just praying, and I said, I'm here. I stuck my hands into the dirt to feel it. And that's when it all finally clicked. Like, all that work came together when I stuck my hands in the dirt. And I said, and that's when the real surrender happened. The desert was the final character. That was the final scene partner. That's when you turn off and say, okay, the work's out the window. Let the desert and Zazie give me everything I need. And it all became this like cool alchemy for a small moment until sunset.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, I asked, it kind of, that's what it felt like. It felt like it felt like there's a quote, I think it's Charlie Parker, who says, learn everything and then forget it all. And it felt like that. I have a question in terms of Winston, like this is Edson's first movie. Were you nervous at all working with him as a first-time director? Did you know he was going to be this clear, this intentional? And what was that like?
Yeah, I feel like I got a really great insight to the type of director he was, because he is a writer-director. The script itself told me everything I kind of needed to know about my director. I was like, wow, this is the guy, right? And then once we had our 3-hour conversation where we pretty much didn't even talk about the movie. I think we spent 30 minutes of that time talking about the movie. And we talked as people otherwise. Talked about Star Wars, talked about anime. We talked about being immigrants. We talked about how similar being an immigrant from Brazil is to being an immigrant from Trinidad and Tobago, what it feels like to be an outsider. And it was like those things kind of just told me the kind of human being and then that I was going to be dealing with. And then once I was on set, you know, the thing about Edson is that he's really clear about the world that he's creating. So it felt like a person who's been directing for a long time. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Because he knew his vision. He had a clear vision of what he wanted to accomplish. And he understood, explain it, do the work, surrender, let us perform.
Thank you.
That's cool. And Edson, I know how personal the film is to you, and that the film is, you know, something you worked on for years and years, and writing about your uncle and writing about your understanding of his passing. And how did you know that Winston was the right one to carry that spirit?
First, he said something that for me was so. When we're just talking about why we make movies, you want to make people who feel invisible not to feel invisible, not to be invisible, to give a voice. And I think that was so much how I think my uncle felt, you know, and how, you know, I feel when I connect to him. I feel invisible. I knew from our conversation that he wouldn't judge who my uncle was or who I am sometimes when I become my uncle sometimes. And I used to judge that a lot. I used to feel like I can't be like him, you know? And even when sometimes I am like him, I feel like I can hate that part of me, you know? And I think you can't do that. I knew he wouldn't do that. And he would really fell in love with the character. So it was very meaningful. And then second was just, he was the will of the end of the movie, you know? Winston, he can just light the room with his energy, with his joy, with his, you know, and I knew that I as you said, I just need to sit, you know, above him and just don't let it just like somehow put a roof and just like, you know, press him down. And then by the end, just, you know, let him go. Because then it was more like about how could I communicate with him for him to just hide that will. So it's more like a casting for what he will be.
It was like a pressure cooker. It felt like a pressure
cooker.
Winston, is there anything else you'd like to add or anything? Or do you want to bring us out with your beautiful voice?
Oh, no, it's just, you know, I hope that you guys enjoyed 9 days. This was a passion project for everyone involved. Spike can speak to it. It becomes a passion. So I hope that everything that we've poured into it has kind of been transferred into your lives from watching it. And after we've left such a year of not having human connections in the same way and now appreciating them in a different way, I hope that this movie speaks to people where they're at. And thanks for watching.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Edson and Winston. I send you both love, and I look forward to all being in the same room together.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Spike. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Be well.